So let's talk about a rather important topic that most people probably don't have to think about, but some people do, and it's really hard to think about. And that is the layout and design of a large space for human use. I guess it fits into landscape architecture, urban planning, although I'm not really imagining urban in the same sense as most people. Uh, um, this property is enormous, and I think I'm sort of, in many ways, stuck. I don't know if that's the right term. I'm frightened of making the wrong decisions in land use, and I don't think I should be. So I'm going to try and talk myself up to some action here. It took me 9 years to think about where I would have dirt roads dug, and I was afraid that I would damage the forest. And it turns out that that time did allow me to make very good decisions. I'm very happy with almost every decision I've made regarding roads. And another nice thing is that the forest just grows over whatever you make if it's just a dirt road. So there's not a lot of risk involved there. Now, there is risk, however, in making any decision because it limits your other decisions and it sways your other decisions. And so I like right here, I want to go through this ridge. This is one of the more extreme ideas I have. I want to, if I have to use dynamite, go through that ridge and build a building in a gully over there. It's a good spot for a building for a variety of weird reasons. I have to also, though, talk to a bulldozer guy. Sorry to be sexist, but it's always been a guy. And dig across. I'm like so. I'm not really afraid of it, but I'm just so aware that any detail of anything I say, someone can nitpick at. It's like, yeah, all the bulldozer guys I know are guys. Okay, it's not my fault. And I don't care if they're guys. Whatever. Not my fucking problem. Shut the fuck up. Actually, don't shut the fuck up. Make intelligent, smart, helpful comments on anything I say, because I would like to have those discussions with smart, intelligent people. In fact, if you're smart and intelligent enough, we can set up a time to talk online and we can record a video, because there's lots of people know way more than I do. Anyway, so I want to dynamite through this. But the thing I have to talk to about I have to talk to a bulldozer person about is cutting across a slope and finding out if that can even be done, because I want to do that. And then I already know I'm going to put a road down here. And the thing is, these roads grow over and they essentially become trails. Like this used to be a road. You couldn't drive down it now. It just grows over. And so my concern about making the wrong decisions is no longer about the biology of the system. It's more about how I'm going to influence future development decisions. That's the bigger issue. And whether there'll be any future development or not is another matter, but that's what I'm planning for. And I have made some decisions that I would do differently. For example, I put 2 cabanas way far out because I thought, wow, that'd be really great to have 2 cabanas way far out. Well, guess what? We never really even finished the inside of them, and no one stayed in them ever, and they're too far out. In fact, in general, I would have put most everything closer in. And this was because I have the attitude that it's really cool to have places far out in the forest. And it is. But the whole place is far out in the forest. And most people, the vast majority of people, want to be closer into other people. At least shouting distance, you know. I think that's a measurable good distance of how far apart to be. even if I built like hermit huts, I think that being within shouting distance of another hermit hut would be useful. And you could have total visual privacy and everything. And, you know, there's lots of issues. But in here, I've been confused about where to put in transport. This road right here, this really shitty road, has rocks on it. It was put in when I first moved here. This one, I didn't decide even where it went. I didn't even know anything. And so they just decided where it went. And one of the things I have to always remember is just because something was put somewhere once doesn't mean that's where it should be. The old design does not imply that that is what it should be. However, there is also investment in that design. And actually, in this case, I think that is a good place for that to be. This could end up being a walking or a driving road. But I think it's a good place for a driving road as well. I could criticize it, but right now it has trees growing in it because it doesn't get used. There's another problem is I lose my roads because they don't get used. Anyway, what I thought about doing, and I'm not going to do this for this video today, but is walking the entire property, which takes a long time, probably more than one day, and talk about what in particular bulldozer changes I would make. And those are big decisions, but not as big and scary as I think they are, really. But there's places you can't get to, and you should be able to get to everywhere, either walking or with a vehicle or a cart. I very much like the idea of cart culture, because cars are going to go away anyway, and I don't want to design for cars. But in this case, we're talking about very slender roads here, and so the kind of road, I'm using the word road very loosely here, you know, that doesn't even have pavement, isn't as big a decision as I'm kind of making it up to be in my mind. So I'm hyping myself up for making a spreadsheet with every bulldozer project. And another reason I need to do those is because they're fire breaks. Right now, everything is wet. It rained all night. It rained all night before that, and it rained all night before that. Everything here is just soaked. It's great. But other times of the year, everything is deadly dry. And this whole place can just become a forest fire. I've been in those forest fires. They're kind of scary. I mean, they're exciting. It's fun. But it's not the kind of fun you choose to have. If I had roads, then I have fire breaks. I could also do what's called prescribed burns. I could do intentional burns that mimic natural forest fires that would happen, but do it in a controlled way. That's good for the soil, good for some kinds of plants, the mycology. I can then plant those burned areas and have extremely productive gardens. The most productive garden I've ever had was on a burned area. It was fantastic. So lots of the land, I've been thinking for 20 years now about how to use land right. And lots of it I already know what to do. And the thing I wonder about as I try and, well, I guess that's what I need to do is take a map. I'm good at making maps. And determine what I know I'm going to do and find the areas where I don't. Because there's some areas where I'm just like, I don't know what the hell I should do there. And there's less and less of those. But those are really good conversation items or topics to have with people, perhaps with people who know more than I do. And of course, the things I think I know, I would love to have questioned by somebody who's an expert. The other level of that is to pines, and there was less undergrowth. Now there's places you can't even walk to. And so I need to work on that. But so this is all figured out over here. The south side's hard to figure out because there's a road there. It's just a dirt road now. But, you know, you got to assume roads will develop and be used. until civilization falls. But you kind of have to plan for both, right? Civilization not falling for now, and eventually falling. Quickly or slowly, unclear. Anyway, so I have a plan for that, and that plan is mostly to build an interior wall to divide it off, and then decide later what gets done there. That's tricky stuff. I don't have anything else smart to say about my confusions regarding landscape design. And I do know this: I don't want sprawl. And this is something that won't make any sense to almost anyone. When most people think about like the homesteading off the grid idea, they think about being alone or in a very small group. And so they're okay with like, you know, everybody having their own 5 acres. And they're the kind of people who want to get away from everyone else, and that's all cool. I have a very different way of looking at that, and that is that I want to cluster people, and not even cluster. It's called cluster housing, where you put a bunch of houses in the same area. Well, that's a good idea, and I already mentioned that we can have little huts in certain spots. You know, those would have a very low ecological footprint, and those are for a more solitary experience. So I'm not suggesting there's like one true way of doing architecture. But the buildings of most interest to me are actually the hardest ones for me to build. They're far beyond my abilities. And I need an architect to help me with it. And they have to be an architect who's really interested in designing an actual sustainable building, not just a LEED certified piece of showcase bullshit, you know, but something built with like local materials, that has composting toilets that aren't fancy big plastic ones like that Blewett building or what it's called in Seattle. But you know, like really primitive systems in some sense, but ones that actually work. All pass a solar course. And it's just beyond me because they're, you know, I'm imagining 4-story buildings connected to other buildings with walkways and tunnels, capturing all rain. I got to do some math on rain capture and how much in this climate, because what you can do with rain capture depends a lot on your climate. These happy dogs drinking out of a mud puddle. I'm not drinking out of a mud puddle. You dogs are weirdos. See, that water does look pretty clear. I could drink that. I'm not gonna. My life is a science experiment, but I'm not just gonna go totally random with doing. I'm not drinking out of a mud puddle. I don't feel like it. I have better water than that. That water's already suspicious too, though. It's not filtered. It's just unfiltered rainwater collected off of a roof that has animals living on it. It's not the way you're supposed to do things. Here's a case where I wouldn't have put this gate right here. So along with the design rules, there's rules of what not to do. People don't like the word rules very much. I do. We have them for reasons. We don't have to follow them. I mean, I make the rules. I'll break them. I'll change them. You know, God didn't make the rules. I make the rules here. But I would have put this in further. It does have a little bit of space outside of it so a vehicle could pull in there, not blocking the road. But I would have moved it way in and given a lot more space outside the gate as well. I don't need to move it way in, but a little bit in. But that would also allow for potentially an outside gate that went, like I might want a road that goes that way, or put a gate over there that goes that way. I don't know. I'm confused about where to put things still. Not all of them. Like I know I want to put a road up there that's on contour. Almost all the roads I do, and this is a general design rule, is all roads should be on contour. All roads should be flat. It doesn't work, of course, because you got to connect up those roads somehow. So you're going to have, in a GIS system could also tell you this. you need a 15% grade maximum, and I like 12 better. This is like civil engineering stuff, where you don't want to go over like 15% or 12% grade, but you need to connect those up. But a GIS program could then say, oh, well, you have your contour roads. Here's where we've agreed that you're going to have your contour roads. We think they're great places to have them. And here's where I would suggest you connect those together, because you're going to have to connect them. And this is a whole different way of designing things than saying, I want my house here, and then I'll design other shit to accommodate that. No, there's certain things you should design in a programmatic way, whether it's with an actual program like GIS or just with a set of principles. So, like there's a road right here that goes up this way. I don't even know that road should exist. It probably should exist. It has beehives up there right now, so I don't want to bother the bees. So that's a different issue. But anyway, I want to put a contour road that shoots way across there. This is a more or less one-way road, and it's going to be a really important road in the future. So I think it's going to remain a one-way road with some pullouts and make it wider in spots. And then I need other roads that also go on contour. I'm going to do one below here, one above here, and then one above that. And I've already got one way above that. So that, how many roads is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 roads. 5 roads. And that would allow for buildings to be built between them, the access on both sides. You have more than one first floor if it's done right. That would be the ideal. And those don't have to exactly follow contour. Some of them, I mean, when you get into like a gully, when the contour goes in, that's an opportunity to dig into that slope, fill in the gully side, make a wider spot in the road, and a flatter, bigger spot, which could be for parking something. You could put a building dug further into slope there. It's just, having bigger flat spots. But in order to think about it, I have to start out with these narrow bulldozer roads. And that's what I'd recommend people do. And then flatten later. Because you don't know if you want to flatten somewhere or not. And it's really hard to think about land if you can't even get to it hardly. Even if you can get to it, even if you're looking at it, people do dumb shit like when they get to a gully, they have the road go down into the gully, then back up. No, that breaks the rule of having a contour road. Don't do that. Bad design. Not on my land anymore, but even as I walk around other land, I'm always looking at it and saying, like I know of a place up there, if I owned that land right there, over there, I know where I'd have to get out my GPS and, well, a drone would be better, but I can do a GPS. And then make a road that goes, I have to measure the elevation difference between there and over there, because I need a road that goes to that spot. There's a field down there. And that field would be a great place. You could build an entire eco village in there, and it could be really cool. And I thought about a few different designs of how that would actually shake out. But you definitely have to have roads to get to places. Now, there's some dumbass hippies who will say, why are you talking about roads? We shouldn't have any roads. Everything should just be forest. And it's like, fuck you. You use roads. You love roads. Everywhere you live has roads. It just has them built wrong in too many of them. Right? There's too many roads. They're built in the wrong places. And so just because you've seen an example of shitty roads and how civilization has been designed wrong, that doesn't mean roads are inherently evil. Okay? So, try not to say dumbass hippie shit. I love saying things about dumbass hippies because I'm a hippie kind of, and I actually don't want to insult hippies. I just want them to be smart. And, know about things like microbiology so that their rainbow family gathering doesn't give everybody dysentery. Let's be smart hippies. Very smart hippies. And we don't have to dress up as hippies either. Fucking fashion statement hippie pseudo-spiritual fucks. God, those people are annoying. It's like they work so hard not to know anything. They just make shit up. Whatever feels good. That's funny. I feel like I'm just saying a script of things I would say, because I'm actually not even in a grumpy mood. I'm in a very good mood. It's just such a beautiful day out. And having it rain all night like that, I mean, look at this field. It's a beautiful field. And this is where I would put an eco village. And I know pretty much, well, I've imagined a few different designs for how that could work. Although I really like most of them. I think I would put a lake in the upper side, actually. That seems odd. But put a lake up here, a pond, because a lot of water collects. Some water collects around here. And it's currently one of the higher spots. And so water naturally gathers over there. And you could put a pond where it naturally gathers. And you could put a pond up above that. I don't know. This is the kind of thing where I get confused. Like there's a potential view over there. Well, you would have to cut trees to have the view from a building. And then there's and then what's below that matters too. Because ideally you would have a park there so people can be outside and have a view. But often you also want a view from a building, but you would set the building further back. I have a similar criticism for how some beach towns, I don't want to mention the name of the one I'm thinking of, but they just build right on the beach. And they need to pull all that shit way back. The beach should all be park. And that's also, better for wildlife and comfort and public use. It's a shame that most of the best places, when places get designed, the most ideal spots get used by the rich people, usually the people who are colonizing it or own the land. And they use it for their selfish purposes. They have big houses with low population densities, and that's terrible. So I do have this weird thing about believing that we can live in nature, but part of that is slippery as fuck in here. Sometime I'm going to be on camera and I'm going to bite it hard. Oh well. Essentially I want almost city level density surrounded by food forest. So everybody lives in a park. And you can toss some plazas in there as well. But even a plaza can have more than one layer to it. Like I have imagined in a place we passed earlier of having a concrete upper floor and partial concrete lower floor as well. And there's a plaza on top. You walk around and it's mostly open. And then there's huge holes in it. There's huge gaps. They go down to the earth, and down there it's earth. And you're channeling more water into those. And you have even ways to control how much water that gets. So you could grow trees in those microclimates, because it'd be extreme microclimates. You could grow trees in there that would not grow elsewhere. And down in the lower floors of it, you could have some parts that are like a building, they're enclosed. You could have some parts with fires, like fire pits that the smoke goes out of a hole and people are able to sit around it outside of the rain. You can do so many cool things. This is like the multi, I don't know how to call this thing, like this kind of multi-plaza idea. That stacked plaza, stacked plaza sounds better. But having a lot of it be guiding light in to microclimate gardens. And some of them you could even greenhouse over it. And you could have exotic birds. You could have places that raise animals that later on might become native here, but aren't for now. I don't know. That's crazy ideas. Wow, I would love to build stuff like that. Yeah, I had similar thoughts about that the other day. I mean, there was one with a sauna idea where we have one part of that that's overheated. It specifically is overheated using evacuated tube solar hot water heaters. And it would just be this... I thought of this because I was thinking how cool it would be to develop a place near the beach, like a hot beach nearby, and go down there a couple times a year. And then I thought, God, that's expensive. It's far away. You know, you have to then invest in another place far away. You have to travel. I don't like traveling. And it would be actually cheaper to build greenhouse type things, earthships, wallipeenies, things that maximize the sucking in of the sun and make some locations way the fuck too hot. There's a danger when you use passive solar of making an oven, right? Turning your building into an oven. And I don't know that's a real danger, because that too hot spot could be used as a dehydrator, a sauna. That heat can then be channeled off in other parts of the building to be used in chicken brooders and in comfortable places. You could have this too hot of a spot as an energy source for heating up the rest of your building. So I understand the problem of in a single dwelling for one family or something of messing your house up by designing it wrong that way. But I see nothing wrong with, on a bigger building, making a place that's way too hot. And of course we want places that are way too cold, because those are called root cellars. We definitely want root cellars. Anyway, I'm getting to town now, and there's some just random thoughts about land design. And a different day, we'll walk around individual spots, and I will be very confused. No, not necessarily. I will find some confusing spots, but there's a whole bunch of them where I know what I would do and why. And I'm going to have to question a lot of the rules that I believe in. Like one of them is, I don't think you should see any structure from the road. And I can already think of some reasons to break that. Like a gatehouse, for example, for an entryway. There's a spot with one gate, and I want to add another gate. It goes a different direction. And I want to actually expand that, and then I want to put a building there that is somebody who runs those gates. And for now, since we live in a fancy technological world, those gates could even have a way of electrically operating them, so a person doesn't have to do it. But human power is actually the better kind of power, so those gates should be operated by people. Also, electronic things break, so if you did design it for the technological solution, later on, that would be the wrong solution. So why don't we just build it the right way now? Even if that means a human has to get out and open the gate. Well, goodbye. Good luck.